In the spangling world of the bold and the beautiful, where treason frequently hides behind fineness and family fidelity is constantly tested, a shocking new chapter begins to unfold when Electra eventually realizes the full verity about Ivy's manipulation, and the vengeance she and will plan together will leave everyone at Forrester Creations stunned. For weeks, Ivy had been still orchestrating a plan that deposited herself as the victim while subtly destroying Electra's character within the company. At first, Electra couldn't understand why meetings suddenly barred her, why whispers followed her through the halls of the design office, or why directors who formerly supported her creative instincts suddenly misdoubted her judgment. Indeed, Steffi Forrester sounded surprisingly distant. But everything changed the day Electra discovered a retired dispatch thread on Ivy's laptop. Dispatches revealing that Ivy had been oohing non-public design generalities and framing Electra as the source of the breach. The consummation hit Electra like a storm. She had trusted Ivy fully, believing they were abettors in a company dominated by heritage power players. Yet Ivy had used that trust to sabotage her career. When Electra brazened her swain, Will Spencer, the two sat together late at night in his apartment overlooking Los Angeles, replaying every moment that now suddenly made sense. Will, furious at the treason, promised Electra that Ivy would lament ever trying to destroy her. Unlike Electra's instinct to defy Ivy directly, Will proposed commodity colder, more advised, exposing Ivy intimately in a way that would ruin her credibility ever. At first Electra dithered. Vengeance was an commodity she believed in. But the more she allowed about the demotion Ivy had caused, the misplaced openings, the suspicious ganders from associates, and the cold professional insulation, the more she realized Ivy had formally declared war. Meanwhile, Ivy continued playing her part impeccably. Around the services of Forrester Creations, she acted sympathetic toward Electra's supposed miscalculations, subtly buttressing the narrative that Electra had betrayed the company. Ivy indeed assured elderly contrivers, claiming she was agonized to see Electra fall piecemeal under pressure. No Bone suspected that Ivy herself had planted the substantiation. But what Ivy didn't realize was that Will had still begun gathering evidence. Using his connections through the important Bill Spencer conglomerate, Will penetrated digital logs that showed exactly when Ivy had entered the secure garçon room and uploaded the stolen lines. It was a parlous move. If Ivy discovered what they were doing, she could fluently twist the story again. Yet Will claimed that tolerance would be their topmost armament. Days turned into weeks as they erected their case. Electra continued acting as though she was defeated, indeed apologizing intimately for miscalculations she hadn't made. The performance was painful, but it induced Ivy that her plan had succeeded. Ivy came careless. She started boasting still to one trusted supporter that she had eventually excluded Electra as competition. That moment would come the final piece of substantiation Will demanded. But the real shock came when Will revealed the final stage of their vengeance. Rather of exposing Ivy intimately, they would reveal everything during the biggest event of the season, the Forrester Fashion Show, broadcast live online and attended by assiduity elites. The entire fashion world would be watching. Electra was nervous when she first heard the plan. The idea of humiliating Ivy on such a massive stage felt extreme. Yet Will reminded her that Ivy had tried to destroy her career in front of the same world. However, Ivy could simply spin another taradiddle if they didn't fight back intimately. As the night of the fashion show approached, pressures inside Forrester Creations grew thicker. Contrivers rushed through final fittings, models rehearsed their walks, and directors prepared for media interviews. Ivy, confident and smiling, moved through the chaos as if she possessed the place. She indeed approached Electra confidentially with a fake expression of concern, telling her she hoped Electra would recover from this delicate time. Electra forced herself to smile politely while hiding the storm inside her. What Ivy didn't know was that the donation defenses behind a runway had been still reprogrammed by Will hours before. When the show eventually began, the followership saluted the stirring designs as they swept down the runway. Ridge Forrester and Brooke Logan watched proudly from the frontal row while directors rumored about the future of the brand. Everything sounded perfect. Also, Just as Ivy prepared to step on stage to present her newest design line, the massive defenses behind her flitted. At first the followership allowed. It was part of the show. But rather of a design montage, security footage appeared, clear images of Ivy entering the garçon room late at night. Gasps gurgled through the crowd. Ivy set. Further footage followed, screen recordings of Ivy uploading stolen design lines and transferring emails framing Electra. Within seconds, the elegant fashion show converted into a public trial. Ivy turned pale as every eye in the room shifted toward her. Electra sluggishly stepped onto the runway beside Will. The calm confidence in her voice silenced the followership. She explained that for weeks someone had tried to destroy her character, but the verity always finds its way to the face. Will also revealed the final piece of substantiation: Ivy's recorded concession during a private discussion she allowed. No bone. Differently could hear. The silence in the room was ruinous. Steffi Forrester rose from her seat in unbelief while directors demanded answers. Ivy tried desperately to deny everything, but the evidence was inviting. In that moment, the brilliant career she had erected collapsed in front of the entire assiduity. Security attended her out of the structure as journalists rushed to capture the reproach. Yet the most shocking part wasn't the substantiation, it was Electra's final words. Rather of celebrating, she told Ivy still that vengeance had no way been her thing. Justice was. But Ivy had forced her hand by choosing treason over honesty. As the night ended, the followership left buzzing about the reproach that would dominate fashion captions for weeks. Inside the quiet halls of Forrester Creations, Electra and Will eventually allowed themselves a moment of relief. Their plan had worked impeccably, though neither of them felt entirely victorious. Vengeance had restored Electra's character, but it also revealed just how ruthless the world around them could be. Still, as Will held her hand and promised that they would face whatever came next together, Electra realized commodity important the verity hadn't only saved her career, it had exposed the darkness hiding behind Ivy's smile, and that disclosure would change the power dynamics inside Forrester ever. And in true bold and beautiful fashion, the fallout from Ivy's public downfall would enkindle new battles, new alliances, and maybe indeed more shocking backstabbing staying just around the corner. The shocking fallout from Ivy's public demotion during the explosive runway reproach on the bold and the beautiful didn't end when security attended her out of the Forrester structure. In fact, that moment only marked the morning of a deeper, darker chain of consequences that would ripple through every relationship at Forrester Creations. As stupefied guests sluggishly left the fashion show, whispers spread across the room like campfire. Fashion intelligencers incontinently began codifying captions, social media exploded with enterprise, and the elite fashion world began asking one burning question: how long had Ivy been manipulating everyone? Inside the confidentiality area, the atmosphere was tense. Models removed their gowns in silence, while hairstylists avoided eye contact with directors. No bone. Anticipated a glamorous fashion event to turn into such a brutal public reckoning. Meanwhile, Electra stood near the stage entrance beside Will Spencer, still absorbing the magnitude of what had just happened. For weeks she had endured demotion, tone, mistrustfulness, and professional insulation. Now the verity was eventually exposed. Yet the palm felt complicated. She had no way imagined her name would come part of such a massive reproach. Across the room, Steffi Forrester brazened directors who were demanding explanations about how security protocols had been compromised. Steffi's shock snappily turned into wrathfulness. She had trusted Ivy, defended her during earlier difficulties, and indeed supported her rise within the company. The treason felt particular. When Steffi approached Electra, the room sounded to hold its breath. Electra anticipated another blameworthiness, another interrogation. Rather, Steffi apologized, still but unfeignedly, for distrusting her. That moment alone stunned several workers watching hard. For the first time in weeks, Electra felt a weight lift from her shoulders. But the drama was far from over. Across Los Angeles, Ivy sat in the reverse of a black auto speeding down from the chaos she had left before. Her hands quivered with rage as she replayed the humiliating footage that had been broadcast to the entire assiduity. In her mind, The situation was ended defeat, it was a treason. She criticized Electra, she criticized Will, and utmost of all she criticized the Forrester family for allowing similar public demotion. Her wrathfulness sluggishly hardened into commodity darker, a determination to strike back. Ivy had spent times erecting connections throughout the fashion world, and she knew secrets that could damage numerous important people. As the megacity lights reflected in the auto window, she rumored a pledge to herself that this wasn't the end of her story. Back at Forrester Creations, the leadership platoon gathered in the administrative conference room. Rich Forrester stood at the head of the table, visibly shaken by the reproach that had unfolded under his company's roof. Next to him, Brooke Logan tried to calm the rising fear among board members who stressed the brand's character could suffer massive damage. Ridge made it clear that the company would launch a full disquisition into Ivy's conduct and support its internal security systems. But intimately, he was more focused on guarding Electra from farther counterreaction. Public sympathy was formally shifting toward her as the victim of a cruel professional sabotage. Meanwhile, Will's part in exposing the verity sparked mixed responses among directors. Some respected his strategic thinking, while others bothered that using the fashion show as a stage for vengeance could appear reckless. Will, still, remained unapologetic. He believed the public exposure was the only way to guarantee Ivy could no way twist the story again. Latterly that evening, as the structure eventually grew quiet, Electra and Will walked through the now empty design plant. Sketches, fabric tapes, and untreated gowns girdled them. Silent monuments that the fashion world no way truly stops, indeed after a reproach. Electra admitted she still felt uneasy about how severely Ivy's downfall had unfolded. Will comforted her that Ivy had orchestrated her own destruction through deception and manipulation. Their discussion was intruded when Steffi returned with unanticipated news. The footage revealed during the fashion show had formerly gone viral across fashion media platforms. Rather than damaging Electra's character, it had turned her into a symbol of adaptability. Contrivers from rival houses were praising her professionalism, and several influential fashion bloggers were demanding that Forrester give her a major leadership part. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone. Ivy's attempt to destroy Electra had actually elevated her status within the assiduity. Yet while the company celebrated the restoration of its character, a sense of apprehension dallied beneath the face. Ivy knew too numerous secrets. Her unforeseen exposure from the fashion scene raised enterprises that she might avenge in changeable ways. And indeed, days latterly rumors began circulating that Ivy had been meeting intimately with directors from contending fashion houses eager to exploit the scandal. However, the battle between Ivy and Forrester Creations might be far from over, if those rumors proved true. At the Spencer services, Bill Spencer watched the news content of the reproach with an admixture of pride and curiosity. His son had orchestrated one of the most dramatic public exposures in recent fashion history. Bill admired the strategic brilliance, though he also honored the implicit consequences. In the Spencer family, power always came with adversaries. And Ivy, now lowered and furious, could come a dangerous bone. As the days passed, Electra sluggishly returned to her normal routine at the design plant. Associates who formerly avoided her now complimented her for surviving the fire. Yet every time she walked once Ivy's former office, a strange feeling dallied. Vengeance had delivered justice, but it had also revealed how fragile trust could be in a world driven by ambition. One evening, as Electra and Will left the structure together, they noticed shooters staying outside the gates. Cameras flashed as journalists cried questions about the reproach, Ivy's exposure, and the future of Forrester Creations. Electra squeezed Will's hand, realizing that the drama they had unleashed would continue attracting attention long after the verity had been revealed. But deep down she also tasted commodity undetermined. Ivy wasn't the type of person to simply vanish after such a humiliating defeat. Nearly in Los Angeles, she was likely planning her coming move. And if Ivy returned, the coming battle might be indeed more explosive than the bone. That shocked the entire fashion world. In the changeable macrocosm of the bold and the beautiful, vengeance infrequently ends a story. More frequently, it becomes the spark that ignites the coming war. And for Electra, Will, and the important families girding them, the war might only be beginning. The reproach that erupted at the Forrester runway event continued to dominate captions across Los Angeles, and the reverberations inside the Bold and the Beautiful only grew more violent with each passing day. While the fashion world buzzed about Ivy's spectacular downfall, the emotional consequences for everyone involved were far more complicated than anyone had anticipated. Inside the glass, walled services of Forrester Creations, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Workers moved through the halls with a strange admixture of relief and caution, apprehensive that the company had hardly avoided a ruinous reproach, but also apprehensive that the drama had exposed deep fractures in trust. Contrivers rumored about the sabotage, sidekicks replayed clips from the viral runway reveal, and directors climbed to assure investors that the brand's integrity remained complete. Yet behind the professional calm, pressure coddled. Numerous wondered whether the conflict between Electra and Ivy was truly finished, or whether the fallout had only begun. Electra herself plotted to reuse the whirlwind of attention that followed the runway incident. Only days before she had been viewed as a liability within the company, someone whose supposed miscalculations hovered the brand's character. Now she was being praised as a survivor of commercial sabotage. Intelligencers wanted interviews. Fashion influencers praised her adaptability online, and several influential hairstylists indeed requested collaborations with her unborn collections. Despite the unforeseen swell of support, Electra felt uneasy. The limelight that now girdled her was erected on the demotion of someone she had formerly trusted. Indeed, though Ivy had finagled the entire treason, Electra could and fully silence the voice in her mind that wondered whether the public exposure had gone too far. When she commended these dubieties to Will Spencer during a quiet evening at his apartment, he reminded her gently that verity and justice occasionally arrive through uncomfortable moments. However, Ivy's deception might have destroyed Electra's career permanently if they had remained silent. Meanwhile, inside the superintendent's suite, Steffi Forrester and Ridge Forrester were locked in violent discussion about the future of the company. Steffi felt tete-a-tete betrayed by Ivy's conduct, not only because Ivy had manipulated the company's systems, but also